The path towards elimination from that decision, needed to be defined. We had been working on elimination for 6 years previous, and we'd been successful. However, it kept coming back. So what we wanted to really focus on was, what do we need to do to prevent PED from taking hold in that region and not snowballing out of control?
Welcome to the Swine Health Blackbelt podcast, the latest swine health research digested for you. My name is Dr. Clayton Johnson, and I'm the host of the podcast. Joining me for this week's edition is Jenelle Hamblin. Jenelle is the Director of Swine Health with Manitoba Pork. And Jenelle, it is a pleasure to have you on and join us from north of the border. Why don't you start with an introduction for the audience, a little bit more about yourself?
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Johnson. As mentioned, I'm Jenelle Hamblin. I'm the Director of Swine Health with Manitoba Pork. I've been with the organization for about 7 years now, and I work primarily on disease management and response, emergency response, as well as biosecurity programming offered by Manitoba Pork, with a large focus on foreign animal disease preparedness as well.
Well, and Jenelle, I should start with a compliment. I have been very impressed by the work that you guys have done for foreign animal disease preparedness. From the animal movement monitoring that you have the structure in place for in Canada, to the feed ingredients of concern. I feel like Canada has been very proactive and has set an example for the rest of us on how we want to manage these challenges. And you're here to tell us about yet another example of that, with a disease challenge that sporadically pops up in Canada and is kind of like a seasonal thing. And it's our old friend PED. Jenelle, you guys have worked on a plan for PED regional elimination. You want to talk to us a little bit about, what that looks like, who's the driver behind it? What's that journey been like?
Absolutely. It's been about 10 years of PED here in Manitoba. And specifically, about 2 years ago, our industry felt that there was a need for a review and evaluation of how PED was being managed in the province. We had just come out of, I guess we were in the middle of our third large-scale outbreak of PED in what we call our high-risk area, Southeast Manitoba, our region that has had the most PED in our province. And our industry, so this was a very industry-led decision, they came together and said, we can't do this anymore. We can't deal with these large-scale outbreaks of PED every 2 years is really the cycle or pattern that we had been seeing. So a group of industry representatives came together to form what we called the Future of PED Working Group. And our mandate was to do an evaluation of what the future of PED in Manitoba would look like. And that really came, again, was very industry led, and it came from our players throughout the value chain saying we need to look at managing this, maybe not necessarily differently, but we need an action plan with how to move forward. So from there, we did an evaluation of the different PED management strategies. And I think, Dr. Johnson, you were involved in some of those vet-to-vet interviews on how PED is managed in other jurisdictions, really focusing on those swine-dense areas, because that is really what our Southeast Manitoba region is. It's more of a swine-dense area for our province. And coming out of those evaluations of those strategies, our team did ultimately land on elimination being the chosen PED management strategy for our province. And that's really because of the nature of our production, the concentration of PED in that one region, and how other parts of our province aren't currently dealing with PED in that volume. So the path towards elimination from that decision, needed to be defined. We had been working on elimination for 6 years previous, and we'd been successful. However, it kept coming back. So what we wanted to really focus on was, what do we need to do to prevent PED from taking hold in that region and not snowballing out of control? Well, out of control. We always got it back into control, but not before we had a lot of cases come on board. So really what was defined in that action plan or that elimination plan was the steps that we wanted to take to, first of all, prevent PED cases from coming up in that part of the province in the first place. And should we see a PED case confirm, what are we going to do? How are we going to manage it to quickly eliminate that infection and reduce or prevent risk of spreading in other parts of that southeastern part of Manitoba?
At Essential Ag, pork production is our life. We understand the real-world challenges producers face, and that is why we strive to bring research-driven solutions to the industry. The team at Essential Ag is working hard every day to find and deliver innovative technologies to you because we are passionate about solving your problems.
And Jenelle, as I understand it, PED activity is minimal to none right now in Manitoba, which is a great time to plan, right? We have kind of the quiet peacetime where no disease is knocking on our door imminently. But talk to us a little bit about what is the plan for if and when it gets fired up. I would presume to eliminate PED off of a pig farm is not the complicated part of the plan. Is that fair?
That's very fair. When we went to create this roadmap, if you will, the on-farm actions, they're quite well established. How to eliminate PED on a farm is not something that we're really questioning. The one thing that I will say to that is that our veterinarians were very clear to say, there isn't always a cookie cutter or one size all approach. And the steps that we've taken are very much outcome based. The plan is developed in a way where we have certain specific outcomes to achieve throughout that elimination process, which again, like you say, the steps are fairly well defined. But how those steps are achieved could look different based on the infrastructure of the farm, the flow of the farm, the labor aspects. So we wanted to make something that was adaptable to each farm scenario in our province. And that was something that our vets were very clear needed to happen. So there's that part. The other part of the plan that we have established is a large component on prevention, which involves biosecurity on farm during this peacetime, and then moving into those high risk periods of time. We've typically seen PED take hold in the province in the spring, so we really are on high alert right now. Coming into the spring melt as well, we're going to be seeing manure application season starting, and then seeding. Our farmers are going to be in the field. We're going to have dust. We're going to have lots of field activity. So a big part of our plan is to focus on that prevention in the first place. What can our producers do to enhance their biosecurity? Again, not rocket science. It's well laid out. We have protocols and recommendations outlined in the plan, and our veterinarians are well versed in things that they need to implement on farm in advance of or during these high risk periods. So prevention is one piece. Another component of our prevention plan that we would like to get underway is performing more regular on-farm surveillance. So we are currently working with our provincial CBO office to develop a schedule of events and creating a logistics plan to perform regular on-farm PED surveillance. These would be environmental samples that would be taken once a week and brought into the our provincial lab in Winnipeg for diagnostics. Where we're currently in a bit of a hiccup is financial, so we need to get some funding in place to get this program off the ground. But we are working on that. The thought behind that is if we can catch it early, we can prevent it from moving.
Mm-hmm.
If we're taking environmental samples on the farm, we maybe don't see, or it's there at a low level, especially nursery finishers where you don't always quite see it right away. If we can catch it environmentally and then prevent that downstream movement of infection, and then prevent another farm from being positive, that's really the thought process there. So in terms of that's prevention, we're also looking at actionable interventions when a case is confirmed positive. So the key here is really a rapid and aggressive response. We want to act quickly on this infection because we've seen how PED can plume in the environment and then cause neighboring infections close by. Again, those swine dense areas. We've had linkages through wind and weather patterns in previous outbreaks. We want to, again, control and eliminate as quickly as we can on any PED farm. And that involves locking down that farm, creating or implementing strong biocontainment, performing your elimination exposure quickly, efficiently, and then as well creating that production gap in a way that's going to, in the sow farm I'm speaking to, in a way to create or succeed at weaning negative pigs as quickly as possible. So delay or not extending out that level of infection for longer than we need to. The other piece that we've implemented on an intervention for the farm is stopping movements off that farm for 4 weeks. Now, I say that with a few caveats in that we implement this from a disease management standpoint. However, animal welfare is still at the top of the list for considerations when we're implementing any of these interventions. Animal welfare remains top of mind. So if there's a scenario where we're saying no animal movement from this farm for 4 weeks, that's not to sacrifice animal welfare. If animals need to move for health or for welfare reasons, then that's going to be the case. And we work very, very closely with our Chief Veterinary Office. Manitoba Pork and the CBO co-lead the disease response for PED. So we're in constant communication with our veterinarians to understand what the needs are on these specific farms.
Salmonella presents significant challenges to pig health and performance and poses food safety risks to humans. As the first and only vaccine offering live attenuated strains of both Salmonella cholerae and Typhimurium, Enterosol Salmonella TC from Boehringer Ingelheim protects pigs against both serotypes with a single oral dose. Talk to your Boehringer Ingelheim representative to learn more.
Thanks, Jenelle. That's tremendous information, a wonderful overview of all the work that you've got going on, both on the biosecurity side to try and prevent the need to execute this regional elimination plan, but also for the inevitable likelihood that some farm in Manitoba gets infected with PED in the future. What does that look like in terms of biocontainment at that site and ultimately the actions taken to try and minimize the risk to all the other producers in the region? Really appreciate you coming on and sharing that information. And to our audience, thank you very much for joining us. If you enjoyed part 1 of our discussion with Jenelle, please come back next week. We're going to get into even more details about how you resource this plan. What do we need outside of the normal resources that pig producers have in place? And ultimately, where does the money going to come from? We'll also talk about how do we get engagement from all industry stakeholders, not necessarily just the main producers in an area, but all of the producers, large, small, niche, at every level. How do we communicate with them? How do we educate them? And ultimately, how do we get everybody's buy-in to go out and execute this program? Jenelle, thank you so much for coming on and getting this discussion started. You've been a tremendous guest here for part 1 of our discussion on regional PED elimination in Manitoba. Look forward to having you back on next week as we further this with part 2. For Jenelle Hamblin, I'm Dr. Clayton Johnson. Thanks again for joining us on the Swine Health Blackbelt podcast, and please have a great rest of your day.
Hey everybody, we're always searching for the latest and greatest research to share each week. If you have a swine health related research trial and would like to come on the show and talk about it, share it with us, please feel free to email the research to hello@wisenetics.com. That's HELLO@WISENETIX.com.